What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Red and Bold Show. We're back from a hiatus that my schedule kept causing, but we are back together to talk 49ers football. And hey, it's a great time of year to be talking 49ers and a great time to be talking about this particular 49ers team because they are playing really well. I am your host, Marc Adams. You can find me at 49ers Camelot, or if you go on to 49erswebzone.com, you can find some of my work there. I'm one of the staff writers. I'm joined by my co-host, Anthony Robertson, who you can find at 49ers Cutback. Ant, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good, and it's a football day, believe it or not, right? NFL later tonight, big game coming up. That has playoff implications. Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears. That's going to be right in your neck of the woods out there. That's going to be a big time game. But it's that moment now where you got an opportunity to see what you can go do. The 49ers have kept themselves in the mix. This is all you could ask for. Everything you wanted at the end of the season in the mix to make something happen at this time of the year. And they're absolutely in the mix. And who would have thought that the 49ers, without Fred Warner, without Nick Bosa, without Brock Purdy for most of the season, and George Kittle, would have the potential, if they play well, and they got to play well over the next 3 games, to have the number 1 seed in the playoffs. It's crazy to think, Mark.
I know, isn't that nuts? Because I have to confess that when they lost Fred Warner, I was pretty well on the bandwagon of, yeah, this season's done. Now, I felt like they weren't going to fold like they did last year. I just think that a lot of that had to do with just some dynamics of the team, whether it's coming off of yet another Super Bowl loss and how draining that is. And not only that, but you have in those situations, you have not only the Super Bowl loss, but you have a really short off season. So it just felt like this season would be different, even if they did lose some guys like they have. But man, I did not expect this. I didn't expect them to play as well as they did with Mac Jones. I didn't expect them to play as well as they have without Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. That said, the defense has me concerned. But like you mentioned, they are in a situation where if they win out, they can get the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. How surprised are you that this team is in a position that they're in with a chance to get the top seed? Because we haven't talked in a while. We haven't talked since all of the Ayuk soap opera stuff has happened. We haven't talked since they've gone on this win streak. How surprised are you that they're in this position?
I'm not entirely surprised that they're in the position they are right now, because it was 5 weeks ago when I was kind of saying, hey, if they go on a run and they win these next 4, which are very winnable football games, they might put themselves in a position to clinch the playoffs and have a shot. Now, I wasn't 100% sure they would have a chance at the number 1 seed, but to be maybe getting the 6 or 5 seed, I thought, yeah, that's realistic. 11 wins gets you in for sure. That part I'm not surprised. I think the 1 seed, I was kind of giving up on that a little bit. So I think the Rams and Seahawks kind of coming back to the 49ers a little bit has been nice, but I did think they were going to win these last 4 games. I thought that the way that they were playing, they've been finding ways to win complementary football, special teams, defense, offense, coming up at different times and making big plays. And so this is just a team that's found consistency in chaos. And anytime that you can do that, it means no matter what happens, you're going to find a way around it. And I feel like they're battle tested. They have went through everything that you can think about going through, and they're still standing. So the next time something comes up, they're not going to be shook by it, right? They've already lost their leader in Fred Warner. They've already played without their quarterback. They've already played without the best tight end in football, and they've been able to overcome. So at this point, they just look in the mirror and say, we still got enough. And I think that's something powerful, especially when you get to the playoffs and that time. So I'm very excited about where they're at, but it doesn't surprise me that they're sitting at 10 wins. It does surprise me a little bit that they have a shot at the number 1 seed.
Yeah, and they've overcome a lot. This team has been very much what John Madden used to use the phrase stick-to-itiveness, and I think he probably made that up, but they've really stuck to what they're doing and have persevered through a lot. Before we start moving on into, can they get the top seed? The Colts matchup. Wondering if you, because you break down a lot of film, and you're on Patreon. So if anybody is interested, you can go on to Patreon and you can find Ant's work there. So go check that out. That's at 49ers Cutback, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So give me a young player on offense and a young player on defense that you've been most impressed with this season. Doesn't have to be a rookie. Doesn't even have to be a second-year guy, but one player on both sides of the ball that you've been really impressed with so far this season.
Yeah, on defense, it's easy for me. I'm going to go with Upton Stout. Just seeing the growth. We've seen the development from who he was. We knew he had the aggressiveness, the intensity, the intent. But what we've seen is him fix problems. When he makes mistakes, and you're going to make mistakes as a young player, it's how do you, repair those mistakes, get better. And I feel like Upton Stout continues to do that. You still see the physicality, but what you see is him playing things a little bit different. And he's got a little bit better at coverage, a little bit better feel in the zone. So I think that Upton Stout's improved a lot. And I think that moving forward, that's going to be very important. And I think the 49ers have helped him too. Some of the use of Jason Pinnock has helped as well, right? Some of the big nickel. Upton Stout played a little bit less snaps, but more so redefined what his role was. And I think that helped as well. But I'm really impressed with what he's been able to do. And then on offense, I think I'm going to go back to somebody that probably was disappointing early, but has definitely stabilized some things late. And I'm going with Spencer Burford, because Spencer Burford was injured. He had all the problems that he's had in his past. But since he's caught into that left guard spot, this offensive line has gotten a lot better. And it's not so much that Spencer Burford has been playing out of this world, but what he's brought is stability. And the one thing that Chris Verser always talked about with Spencer Burford was, we just can't get consistency with Burford. He has all these plays where he blows somebody up and he knocks somebody down, but we don't get consistency. What we've got now is a more consistent player, a player that understands what he sees. He plays more like a veteran. And I think that that's really helped Trent Williams. Trent Williams has gotten better since Spencer Burford got in the lineup. So I think it's two young guys kind of on different paths, Upton as a rookie and Spencer Burford as a guy that's been around for a little bit, but guys who are helping this football team and playing their roles and doing a good job. And I think Burford's been very important. That's why I'm so glad he's not injured significantly. The 49ers can't afford not to have Spencer Burford at left guard right now.
Yeah, I like both of those choices. And I really don't know that on offense I would have come up with a different person other than Burford, because we haven't seen a lot of young guys on offense. On defense, we have, obviously. I'm happy with what we've seen from Alfred Collins, but Upton Stout, he's played well. I mean, he's had ups and downs, just like you'd expect a rookie, especially a rookie playing nickel corner, to have. I mean, that's a tough position, especially for a rookie. But I like what we've seen from him. I was going to ask you who you think at this point is the best offseason signing. Robert Saleh, Brant Boyer, Mac Jones, someone else. But I think that Saleh is the obvious choice. So other than Robert Saleh, and so I'm throwing you a curveball here, who do you think is the best offseason signing? Because Robert Saleh is the best one, right?
Yeah, Robert Saleh is the best offseason signing. What he's been able to do with that defense, and a defense that, and I think I heard John Chapman say this, a defense that's less talented than last year. When you're talking about Bosa being out, Fred Warner being out, it's less talented overall than it was last year, and they're playing better. So that's a major upgrade from what you had with Nick Sorensen last year, some of the mistakes and problems. And what you've seen is a defense that's more tied together. The front is more married with the back end. And so even though they've had less sacks, less turnovers that they've been able to create, they've still been able to keep people out of the end zone, which is the ultimate name of the game. So Robert Saleh is that guy. Now, it gets a little bit more difficult when you talk about Brant Boyer and Mac Jones, because without Mac Jones and the 49ers not having a backup quarterback as good as him, they would not be in this position that they're in.
Yeah,
I am going to go with Mac Jones because of that reason, because the quarterback is so important. But I want nobody to forget about Brant Boyer, because what he's been able to do with that special teams has been so significant for this football team. And in games in which the 49ers maybe struggled on offense or defense, the special team has carried this unit. Sky Moore with some big returns, some big tackles that help with field position, even the punt that was fumbled and they recovered it. These have all been significant. And we can't forget, he fixed the kicking issues for the 49ers. He got rid of everybody. He just got rid of everyone and made it happen. So I want to give my flowers to Brett Boyer, but absolutely after Robert Saleh, it's Mac Jones. Mac Jones and what he was able to do in those games was so significant to this team. And if he doesn't help the 49ers beat the Rams on Thursday night, that big stop that they made on that fourth down, they're not in this situation right now. So it's a big thing for them. And that's why the conversations are already coming up about Mac Jones getting traded around the league. He's got a lot of value. He's got a lot of value in Santa Clara as well for the 49ers. But if you think about it, those three guys have fundamentally changed this team. It's been phenomenal.
Yeah. And, they weren't off-season additions, but Keon White, Cleveland Ferrell, those are two defensive, and remember the fan base was up in arms that John Lynch didn't make a trade deadline decision, but he did just, days before the trade deadline. So while we're talking about Robert Saleh, I see this question from David Morazzo in the chat. Could KJ Wright be our future D coordinator, bringing him along similarly to DeMeco Ryans? I think that's a good thought for sure. I wouldn't think of that immediately. My first thought is that they already have Gus Bradley. So that, to me, that's the obvious choice, is based on what Kyle Shanahan's probably thinking. But definitely KJ Wright could be an option down the road.
Yeah, and what's up to my guy David? Always coming through with some good comments and stuff. But I do think that you look at KJ Wright as an eventual defensive coordinator in this league. So I think he is on a track. I don't think it's on as fast of a track, right, as DeMeco Ryans. So I think there is time for Saleh to finish his tenure, for them to turn to Gus Bradley, and still have time to go to KJ Wright if that is what they want to do. But if Kyle feels like KJ Wright is ready, he will move to KJ Wright before he ever goes to Gus Bradley. So I do think that they're putting him on that trajectory. He got kind of the same sort of, way of kind of filling in, right? He started as a quality control. He's kind of moving up through the ranks as DeMeco Ryans. I think that's a good call by David Morazzo. I think he's eventually going to be on that track to be a defensive coordinator for the 49ers. You think
that Kyle, if he believes that KJ Wright is ready, would move that direction before Gus Bradley? Because Bradley was his guy before he got Saleh, not this time, but the first time. That was who he wanted initially, if I remember. I think I'm remembering that right.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Kyle Shanahan kind of change his mind when it comes to different coaches on what he would end up doing. I mean, he was very high on Nick Sorensen. I know that one didn't work out, but he was high on Nick Sorensen the year before, but he decided to go outside the organization with Steve Wilkes. He didn't feel like Sorensen was ready, but if Sorensen would have been ready, he would have went that direction. I think if KJ Wright shows, because Kyle loves to be challenged. He loves coaches that are gonna get it. He thinks they're gonna take him to the next level. If he felt like KJ Wright was a better option, he'll go that direction. He likes the intensity and all that. But I mean, Gus Bradley's got a wealth of knowledge. I think Gus Bradley's the most likely, with KJ Wright coming after that. That's what I think is going to happen. I think it goes Saleh, Gus Bradley, KJ Wright. But how about the 49ers kind of getting it together? The one thing that he has to potentially worry about, Robert Saleh leaves and takes KJ Wright with them as his defensive coordinator, right? That's something to consider as well. Hopefully Saleh wouldn't do that. Usually Kyle works out some sort of an agreement. So maybe you send a Kubiak with Robert Saleh and you keep your defensive side of the ball intact. That's usually what Kyle does. Send the offensive guy with Robert Saleh.
Yeah, and that would be interesting because KJ Wright, was he in Seattle with Gus Bradley, or did they barely miss each other? Because it had to have been close.
Yeah, KJ Wright played for Gus Bradley in Seattle, so they have a relationship for sure. In fact, I think KJ Wright played for Robert Saleh when he was still in Seattle, if I remember right.
Yeah, he did. I couldn't remember if Gus Bradley left, and then who was the guy that came in right after that, that was there when they won the Super Bowl?
It's Dan Quinn.
Yeah, Dan Quinn. And so I know that KJ Wright was there with Dan Quinn. I just couldn't remember how that those two overlapped. So transitioning to the offense, Brock Purdy looks like here lately the 2023 version of himself. Does that have more to do with who they've played, or do you think that maybe he's turned the corner with that injury, and not only turned the corner with the injury, but turned the corner with not being quite as aggressive as far as he's throwing the ball away a lot more, which I think we all would agree is a good thing for Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that it's a lot like 2023, but kind of was sprinkled in 2022. Because one of the things Brock did really well in 2022 was just take what was there, right? Oh, check down, boom, boom, boom. They were even calling him a check down merchant because he was just doing it all the time. And I think in 2023, he had so many big plays. The 49ers led the league in explosives that he was really taking those shots and opening up the offense. And I think in 2024, it got even bigger where it was like almost all shots. And I think what we've got now is a balanced Brock Purdy. This is a guy that's willing to take what's there. Okay, it's the intermediate route over the middle. Boom. It's a vertical route down the sideline. I got it. Here's something underneath. I'll take it. Nothing's here. I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to use my legs. He's becoming a complete quarterback. And I do think it means he turned the corner when it comes to his injury. He looks like he feels more comfortable. He's running around. He's driving on throws. He's doing what he needs to do. But that's what we're seeing is a veteran complete quarterback that's starting to make really good decisions all the time. And he knows that it's about preventing negative plays. Kyle Shanahan's play calling says, don't have negative plays. Brock Purdy's play on the field says, don't have negative plays. I think he's doing a great job. And this is how you play complementary football. You stay on the field, you win on third down. And the way you do it is you stay ahead of the sticks. And those check downs, they add up. Those add up into yards. And when you're not running the ball as consistent as you want, hey, a 3 or 4 yard play to George Kittle or Christian McCaffrey is the same thing as a run game. And so I think he's done a great job. I've been very impressed with Brock, especially since the Panthers game where he had some struggles. He definitely left some balls out there to be intercepted. But since then, he's taken care of the football and done a really great job.
Yeah, he really has. And so it was kind of funny when Mac Jones is in there and he's playing well and people are saying, hey, they're better with Mac Jones. Maybe the 49ers should trade Brock Purdy or whatever. And then you get Purdy back and the way that he's able to use his legs and escape the pocket and escape pressure, you can't compare the two. And I like Mac Jones. What he did was great. He showed great leadership during those games that he played in. But Brock Purdy's different than Mac Jones. And that's not a slight on Mac. It's just that Brock Purdy's really good. And despite what some in the national media may try to say, Brock Purdy's not just some guy that the 49ers are tugging along with him. He's the leader of this team, and that offense is different when he's on the field.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this team is got a difference when it comes to off-schedule plays, right? You just look at the throw he made to Demarcus Robinson this last week, and it's off schedule. He rolls out, he throws the ball, and Demarcus Robinson gets a big catch along the sideline. Those types of plays don't really exist with Mac Jones, and those aren't expectations to exist, right? That's not what you expect. Those are the things that make Kyle Shanahan say when he's mic'd up, hey, Brock, way to go be a baller, right? Those are those baller type plays that kind of set apart quarterbacks. And I think Brock Purdy has that ability to kind of set himself apart and create when stuff breaks down. One of the things Kyle Shanahan wanted when they made the trade for Trey Lance was they wanted something that when everything broke down, he could still create. And so he went and got one of the biggest, strongest, fastest, guys in the draft, and it didn't work out. But Brock Purdy is not big. He's not strong. He's not extremely fast. He's got some quickness to him. But when things break down, he's got that ability. So he is a perfect quarterback for what Kyle Shanahan wants. Operate within the system, but when things don't go right, make something happen. And we're seeing that from Brock Purdy, and that's what's helping this offense kind of elevate to the next level.
Reese Niner in the chat asked a question that plays into this perfectly. This next segue, will Tatum Bethune play against Indy? My question for you is, other than Fred Warner, because there's talk that he could potentially come back in the playoffs, which injured player do the 49ers need back the most for this stretch run? So Tatum Bethune is obviously one of those. Sam Okawanu, Yetur Gross-Matos. These are just three of the defensive players that the 49ers are hoping. These guys practiced or were at a minimum limited in practice this week. So which one of those do you think they need back the most?
I think that there is the two that make the most sense, right, are Tatum Bethune and Etor Gross-Matos. Because with Bethune, you need stability at linebacker. Now, I think Eric Kendricks is also going to fit into that. He's not exactly coming back. He's just kind of coming into the fold. They need linebacker play to improve. I think that's going to help their run defense a lot. They're deep into their depth right now with Curtis Robinson playing so many snaps. Luke Gifford has been playing commendable, but he's having mistakes. He's not a starting caliber linebacker. I think it's been proven now through this point in the season. They need those two guys. But I'm going to go with Etor Gross-Matos for this reason. They need pass rush. They've got to figure out a way to generate pass rush. And when Gross-Matos was out there, he was one of the best interior pass rushers in the entire league. Like, he was winning at over 17%. That is a great rate. The 49ers need that. And I think it also allows them to go back to their NASCAR package, which Keon White is perfect for. He can take on the Mikael Williams role in that. And then Gross-Matos goes back into his normal role. Then you can finally generate a pass rush up front that's consistent. And that also takes some of the pressure off Alfred Collins and CJ West and Jordan Elliott and Clea Davis, who are having to play pass rush snaps. And guess what? None of those guys are real good pass rushers. Elliott probably the best. But I think what this does is allow the 49ers to go back to what Robert Saleh wanted to do, what they were really good at. And I think the linebackers are extremely important. And I think Etor Gross-Matos is extremely important getting off the field on third down. That's going to be key. You can't go into the playoffs and only get, no sacks and 11 pressures in a game. You're going to have to get home on some plays. You got to be able to close out games. And hopefully Gross-Matos can do that. But it's always a big question mark with him. Can he stay healthy? That's going to be the ultimate question mark. But even if he only plays 15 snaps a game, those are significant third down snaps, which is extremely important for the 49ers.
Yeah, I think Captain Niner in the chat says he kind of reflects a lot of what fans are dealing with. He says that Gross-Matos is great if he lasts more than 10 plays. And I mean, I get where he's coming from here, because he's now been with the 49ers for 2 seasons, and yet he hasn't played that much. And so that is the question. Can he stay healthy long enough to actually produce?
Yeah, that's the frustrating part, and they had a particular plan for him the entire time. And I thought that when he came in, they felt like they were going to be able to manage him. And then he had the hamstring issue on top of what he was already dealing with the knee. I think he's out of the woods with the hamstring, and hopefully it's just the knee, and they've got a good plan to manage him throughout. But I mean, make no mistake, getting all these guys back at once is going to be very important. Sam Okuwanu is going to help when it comes to your rotation at defensive end. He's more stable when it comes to run and rushing the passer. I talked about the linebackers. I think Eric Kendricks is going to end up being a significant player for the 49ers down the stretch because he's seen it all. You're talking about a guy that could wear the green dot and put everyone in the right spots, but could still play the run really well and then is better in coverage. That's going to be huge when the 49ers have to play a team like the Seahawks or the Rams, who are going to run 12 and 13 personnel with all these tight ends, and you need linebackers that can stop the run and cover. So I think that this is going to be huge, and getting these guys back is like getting almost a whole new defense, because you're getting like so many guys back at once, and Tatum's a tackling machine. So they need a good tackler, and he's going to be able to do that. So I'm impressed with these guys coming back, excited about it as well.
If they get Tatum Bethune back, and if they elevate Eric Kendricks, how do you see them playing that? Does that mean that those two guys are going to be your starters, or do you think that there'll be some kind of different? I mean, obviously D winners, but how do you think that they're going to figure it out? Because I just would assume that it's going to be Bethune and Winners, and then in that third spot, is that where you see Kendricks, or do you see something different?
I think that there was my initial response when they first signed Kendricks, trying to figure out what they were going to do. I was honestly working through it for like a week on shows, like trying to figure out what they were going to do. And I've come to the conclusion, I believe they signed Eric Kendricks because of what the Rams did with 13 personnel. They knew they needed to improve linebacker play. I think Kendricks is the perfect hybrid between Tatum Bethune and Curtis Robinson, because Robinson can get guys in place. He covers well. Bethune is a guy that comes up and plays the run really well. And Kendricks kind of does all that together, right? He's a veteran. He's a lot like Fred in the fact that he's been a captain of a defense. He knows where to put everyone in place. I think Kendricks signed with the idea he's going to eventually be the Mike linebacker for this team. And I think as long as he's got the grip on the defense, he's going to start at Mike linebacker next to D. Winters. And Tatum Bethune is going to become the Sam linebacker. And when they're out there in their base sets, that'll be the 3 linebacker group. Because I think when you are in your sub packages, you're in your nickel, you're in your dime, especially nickel when you have 2 linebackers, having D. Winters and having Eric Kendricks improves your pass coverage immensely. So I think it helps them in the run. It helps them in the pass. It makes sure they don't have any breakdowns in coverage. And I think that's probably the way they end up going. But I don't think people are really seeing that right now. Right now, everyone's kind of think it's going to be Tatum. And if it is, well, Tatum's played really well. I just think that you don't sign Kendricks if you're not expecting to play him more than the 15 to 20 snaps that a Sam linebacker plays.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder if how the locker room would view Kendricks coming in and playing ahead of Bethune. Maybe they wouldn't care. Maybe they just know, hey, this guy's better. And because Bethune's not a normal starter, so maybe they would be good with that. Ultimately, they just want to win. And so if he gives them the best chance to win, then I think probably the locker room goes along with it just fine, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, he'll have to prove it, right? Eric Kendricks has to prove it. But you're talking about a guy who's played over 5,000 snaps in the NFL at linebacker, who's been an all-pro, who's played in the playoffs, compared to Tatum Bethune that has 400 snaps? I think that there's a big difference between the two. You always have to walk a fine line when you add guys to the team and then they start taking over. But it's no different than a trade, right? Keon White stepping in and getting playing time right away along the defensive line. Like, these things happen. It's never easy. Christian McCaffrey coming in and taking over the running back spot. Everyone knows Christian's great, right? So it's kind of that sort of thing. I think it is an interesting thing, right? You always got to worry about the locker room, but they have enough veterans that understand. And Tatum Bethune, you just look at him, you say, hey, look, you want that spot, go beat him out. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's a great point. This question from Captain Niner in the chat: should and when Fred comes back for a late playoff run, what would the Mike position look like between Fred, Kendricks, and Bethune?
Real simple. Fred's the Mike linebacker. As soon as Fred Warner can step on the field,
he's the guy.
Linebacker. He's ready to go. And then you just make your decision. And you could go with Kendricks at Sam linebacker at that point. I think Kendricks is a lot different from Devondre Campbell, right? Campbell quit when they wanted to put him in a similar role. Kendricks wouldn't. He wants to win a Super Bowl. Like, he wants to win. That's why he's here. So imagine that. You're lined up. Fred Warner's back. This is the perfect situation for the 49ers. And the Rams come out in their 13 personnel with those 3 tight ends. And all of a sudden, your 3 coverage linebackers are D. Winters, Fred Warner, and Eric Kendricks. Are you kidding me? Like, you can actually match up in the run game and in pass defense. Make no mistake, that is a good situation for the 49ers. You can never have too much talent. I always say that. You never have too much talent. And then you would have 2 guys with Kendricks and with Fred that are extremely intelligent. I think that would play really well. I think meeting rooms are going to be great for those guys as well.
Yeah, Fred Warner is a future Hall of Famer. He's the best linebacker in the league. So when he comes back, he's going to take over his starting position. No question about that. Let's transition to the talk about the number 1 seed being in reach. The 49ers have what it takes to win the final 3 games. The question is, will they? I was asked this question in the 49ers Web Zone mailbag. I definitely think they have what it takes, but I'm going to say that they're going to go 2-1 in their final 3. I think they'll probably lose to Seattle. That's what I'm going to say. Pains me to say that. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but I just think it's unlikely that they get that top spot.
I think before a lot of the uncertainty with the Indianapolis Colts, I thought that this was going to be a tougher 3-game stretch to this, and it's still tough. Chicago's going to be right in the mix of the playoff hunt no matter what happens. Seattle Seahawks are going to be competing to get the number 1 seed. There was always the hope, right, that they had Rams and Seahawks that dropped games, and now this game wouldn't have mattered for the Seahawks, and 49ers just needed to win. That's not the case. I do believe the 49ers are going to run the table. And maybe I'm wrong on this, and that's okay. I'll live with that. But I think that the way I saw them going 4-0, I see them going 3-0 over this stretch. I think that the Colts game is the easiest of the three. I think when you just look at the quarterback situation with Phillip Rivers, the intelligence is there, but right now the physical tools, they're just not showing up on film. Maybe it gets a little bit better. We'll see. But I think that the 49ers can beat the Colts. When it comes to the Bears, I think a lot of it's going to be determined on how the 49ers play that run against the Bears. And I think if they play it well, they've got a shot, because I still don't know what Caleb Williams you're going to get week to week. If it's the great Caleb Williams, you might lose. If it's the not so great Caleb Williams, he might help you win. So I think that there's too much question marks with the Bears, even though they're a really good football team, that if you can slow up the run, and that's a big if for the 49ers, but I think Kendricks, Bethune, some of these other guys help with that. I think you can beat them. And with the Seahawks, it's divisional matchup in Santa Clara. The 49ers are going to be wearing their black unis. I just think that this is a situation that the 49ers shine in. And if you got to ask me if I'm going to bet on Brock Purdy in primetime in a must-win game to get the number one seed, or Sam Darnold, I'm taking Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy's not going to make the big-time mistakes in those games. Christian McCaffrey's going to shine. I'm going with the leadership of the 49ers in that game over Seattle. But 2-1, 3-0, I think that those are realistic expectations. I'm going 3-0. I'm all in on this team going, getting that number one seed and seeing what happens when number 54 comes back in the divisional round.
Yeah, because it's like I'm not afraid of the quarterbacks that they're facing. I mean, Indy's trotting out a guy that's like 80. So I know that he's not that old, but obviously. But, and you mentioned Caleb Williams and you mentioned Sam Darnold. I'm not scared about the quarterbacks. Any of these quarterbacks can get hot and can rip you apart. But to me, it's the run defense that makes me afraid. And Seattle runs the ball well. The Bears run the ball really well. Indy has been up and down, but they've mostly been good. And Jonathan Taylor's a very good back. And so that's my biggest concern, definitely for these last three games. We'll deal with the postseason once we get there. Now, Vegas has the 49ers. Last I checked yesterday, and it was still a 5.5 point, as 5.5 point favorites. Your show's sponsored by FanDuel, and so is that where they're at currently?
Yeah, FanDuel has the 49ers favorite at 5.5. They have the over-under at 46.5. And this has been as high as 6.5, and it's dropped down to 5.5 over the last couple of days as the money line has kind of changed. But yeah, the 49ers are hanging in there with an advantage on the road against Indianapolis. The odds makers like the 49ers. They do. They like the 49ers, and I think that they're going to probably be favorites in the rest of the games that they play this year, which is interesting. So yeah, if you're interested in betting, check out FanDuel. You can bet on FanDuel. They got player props and same game parlays. Go check it out if you're interested. It's always a good time.
So with that in mind, Vegas is deadly accurate. I mean, they just really have a great handle on this stuff. I was surprised that the 49ers are a road favorite as much as they were. I'm certainly not going to sit here and say Vegas is wrong, because they're usually not. But are you on their side, or were you surprised as well that they were as big of a favorite as they are?
I think initially when I saw it, because I clicked on to see what it was, like right after everything went down, the 49ers won, and then they ended up losing. Colts lost to the Seahawks. I was curious what the number was, and it was 6.5. And it caught me off guard at first. And I think once I got into the Indianapolis Colts and the numbers and what's been happening lately with them over the last 6-7 games, then it started making sense, because Jonathan Taylor hasn't been the Jonathan Taylor that was lighting this league up over the last 4 or 5 weeks. In fact, he hasn't got 100 yards since November. So it's not like he's been dominating. There's been some tough games for him. And so when Daniel Jones got hurt, it kind of changed that offense a little bit. I'm talking even just the leg injury, not the Achilles, that ended up ending his season. And so I think that they've had some more struggles. Now, they've also been missing players, right? DeForest Buckner's coming back this week. Tarvarius Ward is on the shelf again with his third concussion. Feel bad about that for him. Sauce Gardner's going to be out again. So there have been injuries that have definitely curtailed their success. They have injuries along the offensive line as well. Their left tackle, right tackle have both been dealing with injuries. But teams are taking away Jonathan Taylor, and it's a war of attrition. And as this season has gone on, he's just taken so many hits that it's starting to kind of wear him down. So I think that started making sense. The 49ers are playing really well. Everything is trending up. They're 31 points per game. I think everyone's looking to say, you know what, with that quarterback situation in Indy and Jonathan Taylor being the focal point and just kind of, sputtering a little bit the wrong way, 49ers have a advantage, not a touchdown advantage, but an advantage.
All right. So along those lines, can the 49ers defense slow down Jonathan Taylor and that entire run game? Because it's not just him. That offensive line is built to run the ball as well. Are you any concerns about the quarterback situation for Indy? Does that benefit the 49ers? Does it benefit the Colts? Where are you at on this 49ers defense against the Colts offense?
I think that the 49ers are going to have to do a lot of things right to slow down Jonathan Taylor and the Indianapolis Colts running game. The 49ers haven't proven yet, right, over the last couple of weeks especially, that they can consistently slow down a running game. Now, I think there's a lot of factors that are going to contribute to the 49ers potentially getting that done. We've laid out some of those already, right? When you're going to get back Tatum Bethune, you're going to have Eric Kendricks up. Those things are going to benefit you no matter what position they play. That's going to help linebacker play, which is also huge. I also believe having Jordan Elliott back from last week, missing that game was huge because even though none of the 49ers defenders right now, even Alfred Collins, and I love Alfred Collins, are really elite run defenders right now. Alfred Collins plays a little high. At some point, next year, probably he'll get his pad level low and he's going to be remarkable. But right now, they all kind of give up ground. But nobody gives up ground like Kevin Givens gives up ground in the run game. He hasn't looked as strong since he had the pectoral injury. I think that was a big reason why. But the 49ers have to do a few things right in this game. Number one, they've got to be on their fundamentals about tackling. You got to come up under control. You've got to attack the right angle. You got to take the angles the right way. You've got to do things correctly when it comes to fundamentals. You got to execute tackling. That's number one. Number two, the fundamentals of playing the defense. Linebackers can't be giving ground, going backwards, trying to run around offensive linemen. They've got to get underneath it. They've got to rip. They've got to get to their locations. They got to get downhill and make tackles. That's going to be very important. And then your alley defenders, right? Your force defenders got to come up and turn it in. Your alley defenders got to come up and make the play. I'm tired of seeing alley defenders, Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa, coming up and flying out of control and missing those tackles. You got to make those tackles. If you do, you're going to slow down the Colts running game. So I think Jonathan Taylor is going to have a successful day. I just don't think it's going to be overly successful. So I think he'll probably get close to 100 yards, maybe even a little over, but I don't know if that's enough for the Colts to win. I think the 49ers will slow them down enough, and the offense, the way it's clicking right now, will score some points, and that might end up kind of helping this 49ers defense along.
Yeah, and Malik Mustafa had a rough game last week. The dropped interception, then the big completion at the end zone where he was waiting for the ball to come down instead of going up to get it. I'm not really sure, and Diamondo Lenore didn't do much better himself, but that was rough. So thanks to David Morazzo, you've got a new member there for your channel. Also, Tommy Huxley with the $2 donation. Here's his questions. Givens, what do you say you do here?
Yeah, he's coming with the movie quotes. Givens, what do you say you do here? Yeah, that's a good question a lot of times with Kevin Givens. But yeah, Tommy using his unique comedies, always pulling stuff. He sends me funny stuff on Instagram as well. Tommy's a hilarious guy. But I think that's a good question sometimes for Kevin Givens. What is it that you do here? I do think that Kevin Givens, I think he never came back from the pectoral muscle all the way, right? I don't think he got to build up the strength, and I think that's on display because he was never great at stopping the run or splitting a double team. It was all built on quickness, but now he just doesn't have it. And maybe a full year, maybe next year he'll have it. But he's had 2 pectoral injuries over the last couple of years, and that's been significant for him.
All right, here's a question from Joe Carmack. What's up, guys? Will Ricky be healthy? And if he isn't, will Sky Moore get opportunities or Cowing and Watkins? Okay, so Ricky Pearsall has not practiced this week, but Kyle Shanahan did say that he could potentially play. Usually, if you don't practice certain days, then you don't play, but maybe Ricky Pearsall could still play. I don't know. But yeah, Sky Moore, I definitely think would be in line to get some opportunities. If I think it'd probably be more Kendrick Bourne, but Cowing, I don't know. I think that I don't think they're going to bring him back in this year. Watkins, I am surprised that he hasn't had some time. Like he hasn't been active in weeks. So I'm not really sure what the deal is there, other than Kyle Shanahan is really hard on rookie wide receivers. What do you think about this situation? If Ricky can play, if he can't, who might get more play time?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle making that statement that Ricky Pearsall could play, whether he practices or not, is kind of the idea of, as you're getting to the end of the season, that's how it is, right? If you don't practice during playoff time, who cares? You're playing when the game comes. You just have to be healthy enough for that day. And I think that's kind of Kyle Shanahan's mindset. It's also smart to say that, because then you kind of keep the Colts having Ricky Pearsall in the game plan. So I think there's a little bit of that gamesmanship as well. But I do think if Ricky doesn't practice, he could still play. It's going to be probably a game time decision. We'll see. When it comes to Sky Moore, I think he's in line to get more playing time. If Ricky's not playing, then yeah, Sky Moore's going to be a part of the rotation. It'll probably be primarily the three in front of him with Jennings and Demarcus Robinson and Kendrick Bourne. But I think he would be in line to get some more time. Now, Jacob Cowing, I've said this and I've thought it for a long time. He's going to be on the IR for the rest of the year. They're going to do the 21-day window, practice him, and minus an injury happening, they're going to shut him down. They don't need him. They have Sky Moore. And so I think that Jacob Cowing's a next year guy. When it comes to Jordan Watkins, I think Kyle was very clear a couple weeks ago. I think he almost put it out there as a reason to kind of light a fire under Jordan Watkins. He said, hey, he has to be better than the guys ahead of him to be able to play. I do believe that if Ricky doesn't play, Jordan Watkins will be dressed and ready to go in case they need him. But I don't think he's ever going to be a focal point of this offense, especially this year. And I think they're looking at him now as a next year being able to help this football team. So I think it'll be Sky Moore with the bigger role. I think Jordan Watkins will be dressed if Ricky Pearsall doesn't go. But I think we're all hoping Ricky's going to be ready to roll.
Yeah, for sure. The notorious GAV says, could Demarcus Robinson be doing more? Yes, and I thought that he would, because in training camp he had such a good connection with Brock Purdy. And so then there was, he started the season suspended, and then when he came back, Purdy was out. And so it kind of made sense that Kendrick Bourne was Mac Jones' guy and not Demarcus Robinson. But I really thought that once Purdy came back, that Robinson would make a bigger impact. So I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Demarcus Robinson was going to roll as soon as he came back from suspension. And it wasn't really Brock Purdy playing quarterback at the time. It was Mac Jones. And it was kind of when Kendrick Bourne was coming in. And Mac Jones felt the most comfortable with Kendrick Bourne. Now, Mac did hook up with Demarcus Robinson a couple of times here and there. But make no mistake, he was not looking for Demarcus Robinson. And so there's been some opportunities for Demarcus Robinson where he could have had some explosive plays this year, whether that's over the middle or deep verticals, and whether it was Mac Jones or Brock Purdy. And I think that they're going to start kind of building some confidence with him again. And I think you're going to see Brock Purdy going to him. Now, he plays less snaps, right? He plays like 23 snaps, so he doesn't play a lot than some of the other guys. And that's kind of happened to Bourne as well. It's mainly Jawan, it's mainly Ricky, because the 49ers play so much 21 personnel. So there's not as many opportunities for the wide receivers. But I do believe Demarcus Robinson is going to make plays over the remainder of the season, and that's going to be good. They're going to have they still have some weapons. Kendrick Bourne and Demarcus Robinson are good options, and they can still make things happen.
Filthy Casual fan asked, has KB's blocking improved?
I think it's been hit and miss this year. I do think that you could tell that the 49ers focus on blocking a lot more than the Patriots had because he had to get things right again. He had to get in and get some work in. I think that he competes. He gives a lot of effort. And I feel like his blocking is better now than it was when he initially came back to the 49ers. So I think there's been some improvement. Some of that's the environment at which you play in and the attention to that being a detail that you focus on. But he still doesn't block as good as I thought he blocked before he left San Francisco. So it's a little bit better, but it's still not where I think the 49ers want it to be. I thought Demarcus Robinson and Ricky Pearsall were blocking great last week.
Good. Let's see. Joe Carmack asked, do you guys feel like fatigue was causing the hip drop tackles last week, or were the Titans just dirty? That's an interesting question.
I don't think it's fatigue. I don't think they're playing dirty per se. I just think at times you go back to what you've been doing for years. And this is not something that's new, or I mean, something that's, been around for a long time. So when these guys are growing up and they're playing, youth football and high school football and college football, there's no hip drop tackle rule. That's just how you tackle, right? You get on the guy, you drop your weight down to try to bring him down. And so you're retraining yourself. So I don't usually think these guys are doing it on purpose. I think they're just trying to make tackles, and they go into like their muscle memory. They've retrained themselves. It's kind of very similar with all the things with the heads and the concussions. Everyone had to kind of go change their fundamentals about taking their head out of the game. I was watching an old video, and Tom Rathman was talking about the fact that he was old school. He liked to take his forehead and put it right there when he initially hit. That's the first thing that makes contact when you're blocking, the old hat and hands technique. That's out of the game now. Like, these guys don't do that stuff, and retraining yourself to take your head out is something that's big as well. So it's just something different that they're going to have to continue to work on.
Let's see. I'm looking through some of these questions. Joe asked, do you know if Russell Gage is still with the team? I believe they released him last month. So I don't believe that he is.
No, he's not.
Let's see. The Notorious asked, how much of an impact is George Kittle going to have against a weak Colts linebacker core?
I think it's going to be huge. I did my game preview show yesterday, and my number one key matchup for the 49ers is Kittle and McCaffrey versus the linebackers for the Indianapolis Colts. I think that this is a big mismatch, and I don't know what Lou Anarumo is going to do as far as trying to take away George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey. I'm sure he's going to try to pay a lot of attention to them, but he likes to get aggressive. He likes to run some different fronts. He likes to bring pressure. And I think that could give the 49ers some one-on-one matchups that they really like, with Kittle against a linebacker or on safeties, and McCaffrey especially. And I think that's huge advantage 49ers. That's one of the reasons I'm pretty confident that the 49ers are going to be able to score points. And I'm confident Christian McCaffrey is going to be able to produce in the receiving game, because I do like those matchups for the 49ers. I think that every week you go into a game and you think you have an advantage with Kittle and McCaffrey against linebackers and safeties. But I think this one is even more highlighted because the linebackers for the Colts are not good in coverage. And I think that if the 49ers can use their shifts, their motions to get those matchups, they're going to be very successful.
Yeah, it's just going to be a matter of giving Brock Purdy time. DeForest Buckner's back, and that creates a problem. Let's close out with this. What do the 49ers have to do to beat the Indianapolis Colts on Monday night?
They need to slow down Jonathan Taylor, number one. They just gotta slow down the Colts offense enough to allow the 49ers offense to kind of take over the game. And when I say take over the game, it means long drives, going ahead and converting on third down, and then capitalizing in the red zone. This is going to be the name of the game for the 49ers for the rest of the season. This is how this team is built. Offensively, part of their role is to not score with explosive plays. Those are great. But it's to go on long, sustained drives that keeps their defense on the sideline. And by doing that, they somewhat eliminate the run game themselves, right? If you can get a 2-touchdown lead against anyone, all of a sudden they're going to throw it a lot more, and it's going to alleviate some of the pressure on the 49ers run defense. So I think that that's going to be a big name in this game. 49ers are the number 2 team when it comes to third down conversions in the NFL. They convert at 49%. When it comes to the red zone, they are 63% of the time they're going to score touchdowns. They are rapidly climbing up that list. That's going to be a huge thing. 4 of 6 last week in the red zone. They continue to be great. When you're scoring touchdowns and the other team is kicking field goals, you win. So I think that that's going to be a big part of it. I think this offense can operate normal through McCaffrey, through Kittle, and be extremely successful, whether Ricky Pearsall's playing or not. I think the 49ers have enough weapons to be able to make things happen because of Brock Purdy and his off-platform throws. And so Yeah, I think that's what they're going to go into doing. And I think they're going to put pressure on Phillip Rivers by kind of coming up and playing a little bit tighter at times and making him more willing to throw balls down the field where he hasn't really shown the arm strength. And they're going to try to get off the field on third down. So I think that's how they do it.
I wrote in the 49ers Web Zone mailbag this week that to me, it's as simple as slowing down Jonathan Taylor and protecting the football. If they can do those two things, they're going to win this game. Whether or not they do it remains to be seen, but I think that they can. I think that they will. And then the next step will be just winning those final two games. If that happens, they'll have the number one seed. They'll be home for the postseason, including the Super Bowl if they made it that far. They'll have a bye week, so just more time to get healthy, more time to get Fred Warner back. And so those things are in play. And we'll continue to talk about those things until they're no longer in play. But thanks, everybody, for watching, for listening. We would appreciate it if you'd like the video, subscribe to both channels, 49ers Cutback, 49ers Camelot. We would appreciate it. Helps us out a lot. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you Monday night.